In the 34th millennium, the Outer Rim space station, Virelian Spire, drifted through the void like a crystalline monument to order and logic. Commander Kavron Tal stood at the observation deck, his 4 eyes scanning the star field with the cold precision that marked his species, the Sithari. His silver carapace gleamed under the artificial light as he reviewed the day's protocols with mechanical efficiency. The station served dual purposes, a research facility and diplomatic center for the Supreme Alliance, far removed from the bustling core worlds of the galaxy. Here, first contact with new species was conducted under controlled conditions away from the political complexities of the inner systems. Today marked a significant milestone. After decades of observation, the Alliance had finally made formal contact with a species designated as unstable due to their chaotic emotional culture, humans. Commander, the synthesized voice of Dex, the station's AI ears resonated through his neural implant. The human delegation has arrived at Docking Bay 7. Shall I initiate standard decontamination protocols? Kavron's mandibles clicked in acknowledgement. Proceed. Have them escorted to Conference Hall Alpha. I want full biometric scans running during the entire proceedings. The Sithari had built their civilization on the principle of emotional suppression. Feelings were inefficient, unpredictable, and dangerous. Their ancestors had learned this lesson through millennia of devastating wars fought over passion and sentiment. Now they were a species of pure logic, and Kavron embodied this ideal perfectly. He made his way through the station's corridors, noting the diverse array of species that comprised the Alliance. The crystalline Vorthak hummed in harmonic frequencies as they worked, while the plant-like dendrians swayed gently as they tended to the station's atmospheric systems. All had achieved stability through the careful management or elimination of emotional responses. Conference Hall Alpha buzzed with controlled activity. Representatives from a dozen species took their positions around the hexagonal table. Kavron observed the humans as they entered, bipedal mammals with soft flesh and expressive faces that seemed to change constantly. Their leader, introduced as Sophia Mendez, carried herself with dignity despite the obvious stress markers his enhanced vision detected. Honored delegates. Kavron began, his voice translated into the human's primitive auditory language. We welcome you to this historic moment. The Supreme Alliance extends formal recognition to your species and offers the opportunity for mutual benefit through trade and technological exchange. Sophia stepped forward, her dark eyes meeting his primary optical sensors. Commander Tal, my people are honored by this invitation. We come seeking not just trade, but understanding between our civilizations. The negotiations proceeded smoothly. Technological specifications were discussed, trade routes mapped, and cultural boundaries established. The humans demonstrated remarkable intelligence, though their tendency to use emotional inflection in their speech patterns remained disconcerting to the Alliance representatives. Everything changed when Sophia picked up a data tablet containing updates from Earth. Her face went through a series of rapid transformations. Her brows furrowed, her mouth formed a downward arc, and most alarmingly clear fluid began streaming from her optical organs. The conference hall erupted in pandemonium. Biological containment breach. Dex's voice boomed through the station. Security barriers slammed down, sealing the hall. Unknown pathogen detected. Initiating emergency protocols. Kavron's neural implants fired warnings directly into his consciousness. His training kicked in immediately. All non-human delegates maintain distance from the affected individual, he commanded. Medical team to conference hall, Alpha full biohazard preparation. The humans around Sophia seemed remarkably calm, given the apparent medical emergency affecting their leader. One of them, a younger male, actually approached her and placed his hand on her shoulder. Kavron's horror deepened as he watched the contagion spread. The male's eyes began producing the same clear fluid. Commander reported Dr. Nex 7, the station's chief medical officer, as he arrived with a full hazmat team. My scans indicate no infectious agents. The fluid appears to be a form of modified saline solution produced by specialized glands. Then why are they leaking it? Kavran demanded. Sophia looked up, her face wet with what his species' medical texts would later identify as tears. Commander, we need to explain. We're not diseased. We're sad. Sad? The word didn't translate properly into sea theory. Kavran felt his logical processes strained to comprehend. Define this sad. The human delegation's linguist, a man named James Rivera, stepped forward despite the security barriers. Commander, what you're witnessing is a normal human emotional response to negative stimuli. Sophia just received news that a relief ship carrying her family members was destroyed while attempting to rescue a mining station on the frontier. Kavran's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep confusion in his species. You're telling me that your optical organs leak fluid as a response to information. It's called crying, Sophia said, wiping her face with a piece of fabric. It's how we process grief loss, sometimes even joy. It's perfectly normal for our species. But normal for humans was anything but normal for the Alliance. Kavran ordered immediate analysis of all available human cultural data. Teams of xenolinguists and behavioral analysts pored over intercepted Earth communications, trying to understand this bizarre phenomenon. Commander, reported the lead analyst, a young Denarian named Lyso. We found references to numerous types of this crying behavior. Tears of war, tears of joy, tears of rage. The variations seem endless. Wait. Kavran studied the compiled data with growing unease. According to human cultural files, crying could precede everything from celebration to violence. How could the Alliance possibly predict human behavior if their bodily functions themselves were so chaotic? As the investigation deepened, Lyso made a startling confession. Commander, I must report something. Yesterday, while analyzing human entertainment broadcasts, I observed a human child embracing a small mammalian pet. The scene caused an unexpected reaction in my tear analog glands. I experienced what humans might call emotional resonance. This revelation shook Kavran to his core. If other species could be affected by human emotional displays, the implications for galactic stability were terrifying. Were emotions contagious? Could they spread through advanced civilizations like a plague? Meanwhile, Sophia had been placed in comfortable quarters, but under careful observation. When she requested to speak with Kavran privately, he agreed, though, with full recording and safety protocols in place. Commander, I want you to understand what happened in that conference room. She said, her species' unsettling habit of direct eye contact making him uncomfortable. My brother Marcus was on that relief ship. He wasn't military. He was a teacher who volunteered because children were trapped on that station. When I read that he died saving them, I felt a pain I can't describe in your language. The tears weren't weakness. They were love and pride and loss all mixed together. Love, pride, loss. Kavran's translator struggled with concepts his species had deemed obsolete. These serve what evolutionary purpose? They connect us, Sophia explained. When I cry, other humans respond with empathy. It strengthens our bonds, helps us survive together. We've evolved to feel each other's pain because it makes us work together, even when it would be easier to abandon the weak. 3 days into the crisis, as scientists from multiple species worked to understand the implications of human emotional biology, disaster struck. A fringe Alliance outpost came under attack from raiders. The assault was sudden and devastating, and early reports suggested the attackers were using some form of psychological warfare. Suspicion immediately fell on the humans. They've activated some form of emotional weapon, insisted General Vorthak Prime, the station's military advisor. The timing is too convenient. First, they demonstrate this crying behavior. Now our forces are reporting behavioral anomalies. Kavran found himself torn between his logical training and a growing intuition that the humans weren't at fault. When Sophia requested to broadcast a message to the affected systems, he almost denied the request entirely. "Please," she said, "let me send something to help. I can't explain it scientifically, but I believe I can reach them." Against his better judgment, Kavran allowed Sophia access to the station's communications array. What she transmitted wasn't a tactical message or technological solution. It was something far simpler and more powerful, a recording of herself singing a lullaby in her native Spanish, the same song her mother had sung to her that she had sung to her brother. The effect was instantaneous and inexplicable. Across 3 star systems, reports poured in of combat aircraft suddenly going silent. Varnuk warriors, a species bred for conquest, simply stopped fighting. A Xenthos battle commander surrendered his entire fleet without explanation, claiming only that the sound made him remember something important. Dex's analysis was astonishing. Commander, the human's vocal patterns triggered dormant neural pathways in multiple species. It appears that emotional response mechanisms suppressed through millennia of evolution remain present in our deepest brain structures. The human song awakened what we might call racial memory of connection. Kavran stood in his private quarters, staring at the stars that suddenly seemed less cold and distant. The implications rewrote everything he thought he knew about civilization. Emotions weren't chaos to be contained. They were a universal language that predated even technology. He thought of Liso's confession, of the Varnuk warriors laying down arms of hardened Xenthos commanders, remembering something their species had forgotten. And then, for the first time in his adult life, Commander Kavran Tal felt something his people had trained out of themselves generations ago. A single drop of clear fluid fell from his primary optical sensor. The next morning, Kavran called an emergency session with Sophia. She arrived to find him changed, his posture less rigid, his 4 eyes showing something that might have been wonder. "Dr. Mendez." He began using the formal title for the first time. "I believe we have much to learn from each other. The Alliance has spent millennia perfecting logic and order, but we may have lost something essential in the process." Sophia nodded. "And we humans have often let our emotions overrule our reason. Perhaps together we can find balance. I want to make a formal proposal to the Alliance Council," Kavran said. "Not for a trade agreement, but for something unprecedented. The establishment of the Intergalactic Institute for Emotional Understanding. A place where all species can learn to heal the wounds we've inflicted on ourselves by denying our deepest nature." The proposal would face resistance, Kavran knew. Thousands of years of conditioning couldn't be undone overnight. But as he watched Sophia smile, another fascinatingly complex human expression, he felt something his species had forgotten existed: hope. The Institute was established within the year, with Sophia as its first human director and Leso as her Denarian colleague. Species that had spent millennia viewing emotions as weakness began to rediscover the strength that came from connection, empathy, and yes, even tears. Kavran often visited the Institute, observing the slow but profound changes taking place throughout the galaxy. He watched Varnuk children learn to laugh, saw Xenthos artists creating works of beauty instead of monuments to conquest, witnessed scifi scholars like himself beginning to explore concepts like joy and wonder. Late one evening, as he reviewed reports of peaceful resolutions to conflicts that would have once led to war, Kavran found himself thinking about Sophia's brother Marcus, a teacher who died saving children he'd never met, whose sister's tears for him had somehow awakened compassion across the stars. He looked up at the viewing port, where Earth was now visible as a small blue point of light. On his desk lay a single photograph Sophia had given him. 2 humans embracing, their faces wet with tears of joy. Both were crying, but somehow they looked more alive than any being he'd ever known. Kavran touched his own face, feeling the dampness there. According to his medical training, it was merely corneal regulation fluid. But he knew, as Sophia had taught him, that some truths transcended scientific classification. The universe had spent eons trying to perfect itself through logic and order, suppressing the very thing that made existence meaningful. It took a human woman's tears, the most vulnerable display of emotion imaginable, to remind an entire galaxy what it meant to be truly alive. In his final log entry of the day, Commander Kavran Tal wrote, "Personal note, today I learned that weakness and strength are not opposites, but partners in the dance of existence. The humans didn't bring chaos to our order. They brought us back to ourselves." The entry concluded with something unprecedented in Sithari records. A postscript added not in the interest of scientific accuracy, but simply because it felt right. Sometimes the smallest gestures create the largest changes. Sometimes the universe changes not with a roar, but with a tear. And throughout the galaxy, beings who had forgotten how to feel began to remember. The age of cold logic was ending not with conquest or catastrophe, but with the gentle revolution of a single human emotion that proved to be stronger than all the weapons and walls civilization had ever built. The cry that was heard across the stars wasn't a battle cry or a call to war. It was the sound of a galaxy learning to feel again, one tear at a time.